Hey everyone, it's Brody at Everything Board Games. Game Salute set in Black Orchestra. So let's get it to the table. Black Orchestra is a cooperative action point allowance game that uses dice rolling, pick up and deliver, hand management, and point-to-point movement. Let me show you how all these mechanics work together. In the game, the only way to win is to assassinate Hitler by succeeding in a plot attempt. This might sound easy to do, but you need to gather certain items, use certain conspirator cards, and most importantly, time out your plot to catch Hitler in the right place at the right time. This is hard to do because Hitler can move from one location to another each turn and might even become suspicious of you and your actions. While playing, you will encounter illegal items and cards that might benefit your movement and plans. But be aware that each round there will be a certain amount of Gestapo raids and you can find yourself in prison. You will set up the board and randomly place the item tiles on the board on each location. Place Hitler and the 5 deputies in their starting spaces indicated by the icons. You will be working together to beat the game, and you'll need to select a difficulty that will start Hitler's military support at a certain level. Shuffle and place the event cards in each stage, and then remove 2 from each pile without looking at them. Place the conspirator deck, the interrogation deck, and the dice on the side of the board, because you'll be using these later. Each player will play as a conspirator, and will start with their board, a pawn, and 2 cubes. You will start by placing 1 cube on the timid level for the motivation track. You will need to try to raise your motivation on this track. As you raise your motivation, you will unlock abilities that you will see to the side. You will need to be on the committed level or above to be able to attempt a plot to kill Hitler. You will place your other cube on the medium level in the suspicion track. You will want to keep your suspicion low. When Gestapo raids happen, if you are at the extreme level, then you're going to go straight to prison. Also, when attempting a plot to assassinate Hitler, if your suspicion is high, then you will have a higher chance of getting caught. The game seems highly complex, but in reality it's very simple. On your turn, you'll take 3 actions. I would recommend taking the conspire action as much as you can, unless you really need to do a certain action and you can't risk it. I say this because during the conspire action, you have the chance of earning more actions. But you also have the chance of rolling bad and not getting any more actions. You can only do the conspire action once during a turn. You will need to decide how many of your actions you will use and roll that many dice. For example, I will roll 3 dice and use all my actions. When you roll a target symbol, you will place it on the descent track. Once you have 3 of these dice on the track, then you'll be able to raise one conspirator's motivation by 1 or lower Hitler's military strength by 1. For each eagle rolled, you and all the other conspirators that are in the same location as you will raise their suspicion by 1. For each number rolled, you will gain that many more actions to finish your turn out. In this case, we still have 3 more actions. But if you rolled 3 threes, then you have the possibility of having 9 actions. Let me show you other actions you can do. You can move from one area to another, but you can only go to areas that are open according to the phase you are in. At the beginning, you start in the train station, and you can only move to a place that has the 1 on it since it's phase 1, or you can move any place in Berlin. All of Berlin is treated as if it is all in the same location, and they are all connected to each other. So you could go from here to here to here. Another action you can do is you can reveal an item in a location. You can collect an item for an action. You can transfer an item or a card if you are in the same location as another conspirator. You can perform an action from a card from your player board. These cards will have this arrow on it that will signify that it uses an action. Anything that has this lightning symbol on it means it does not require an action to do it. Another action you can do is you can deliver an item to a location. Once an item has been removed from that area, it'll show details of what can be delivered to that location and what benefit you will receive from it. For example, here you will need to deliver a signature, and if you do that, you can lower your suspicion by 2. Another action you can do is drawing a card from the conspirator deck and adding it to your dossier. Remember, you start the game with only being able to keep 2 of the cards, but when you move your motivation up to the skeptical level or above, then you're able to hold more cards depending on the player count. Lastly, you can release another conspirator in prison by being in the Gestapo headquarters space. You cannot be in extreme suspicion and you will roll a die. If it's an eagle, you will now be arrested and put in prison as well. Any other result, then they will go free, and it signifies you using your own influence to help release another conspirator out of jail. But doing this will also raise your suspicion up by 1. The newly released conspirator will be placed in the Gestapo headquarters space with you, and they will be set to high suspicion. When you're done with your actions in your turn, then you will draw the top card of the event deck, starting with the 1s and eventually get into the 7s. Once all the 1s are done, you'll go to the 2s, then the 3s, then the 4s, then the 5s, then the 6s, then the 7s. These cards help as a timekeeper as well as change the game. Each stage has a key event card. This card will be placed on the side of the board, and if any further cards are drawn from the deck that has a yellow top on it, it'll be ignored and you'll draw the next card. The key event is discarded when the next stage begins. If you can't draw an event card when required, then all players lose the game. Also, if the document's located event card is drawn, then all players lose the game as well. The number of eagles shown below each deck shows how many number of Gestapo raids in each phase. But remember, 2 cards were randomly taken out at the beginning of the game, and this could include the key event or a Gestapo raid. When a Gestapo raid occurs, all players in extreme suspicion are arrested and they go straight to jail. They will have to discard all their illegal cards, and if all players are in prison, you will all lose the game. Then each player who wasn't in extreme suspicion must then choose to either discard all their illegal cards or keep them and raise their suspicion level up by 1 for each card that they keep. Lastly, in the Gestapo raid, all dice are removed from the descent track. So if you end up in prison, don't worry because you will still have a turn. It'll just be a little bit different from the normal turn. You will keep your items and your cards, but you can't use any of them, nor any of your special abilities on your player board. On your turn, you'll be able to draw an interrogation card and read it to yourself without sharing any of that information to anyone else. You will need to choose one of the options on the cards, and it might not be the best options for all the players. If you're unable to perform any of the actions described, then you cannot choose to do it. You will read and resolve what option you pick without letting the other players know of any of the other options. After that, you will draw an event card and follow its instructions. So now let's talk about plot attempts and trying to win the game since there's so many ways to lose it. To attempt a plot, you will need to be in the same space as Hitler. Meet all the elements on the left side of the card. You must be in the committed or reckless motivation level, and you will need to have an action left to be able to attempt a plot. To increase your probability, you can build your dice pool. To do this, you'll need to look on the right side of that card, and it'll give you options of how to make it more likely to succeed by gathering more dice. These options will either add more dice or remove the result of an eagle when rolling the dice, which I will talk about here shortly. These certain options include having certain items, matching your affiliation, and meeting other players in the same location to pull off your plot. But all plots are different, and so you'll need different items and different things to pull off the assassination. Other cards in your dossier might also be used to help increase your dice or remove the result of eagles. When attempting a plot, you will roll all the dice in your dice pool and count how many eagles you rolled. If that number is equal to or more than the number shown in the current suspicion level that you're at, then the plot fails immediately. If this happens, you'll have to discard the plot card, move Hitler to the Chancellery, and all players lower their motivation by 1. And the player who did the attempt is arrested. If the number of eagles shown is lower than the number of the player's current suspicion level, then they will count all the targets that they roll. If the targets counted is lower than Hitler's military support, then the plot failed. But you did not get caught, and you can keep your plot card. If the number of eagles shown is lower than the number on the player's suspicion level, and the number of targets rolled is equal to or greater than Hitler's current military support, then you are victorious and your plot is successful in assassinating Hitler. The game does very well with the theme, as you are always trying to lower your suspicion throughout the entire game. Sometimes Hitler will move and change your plans. Sometimes your motivation will drop and you can't attempt your assassination until you do something to increase your motivation. And similarly, when planning, your suspicion is low, and all of a sudden something happens and raises it to the top, and then it causes you to double think your plan. Maybe you should wait a couple rounds. Maybe it'll give you a better situation to attempt that assassination. Like I mentioned before, the game seems very complicated and hard to learn, and those were my first feelings when first looking at the game. But that is far from the truth. The mechanics are straightforward and simple to learn. If you enjoy Pandemic, you will love this game, as it involves similar mechanics. But this gameplay actually incorporates the theme a lot better. Also, I feel like each player has more control over their character, and there is little or no quarterbacking in this game. My favorite mechanic used in this game by far is the Conspire action. Rolling dice and trying to roll for more actions, with the possibility of getting a target, which would be an okay result, or getting an eagle, which would be a negative result, is always fun, and especially when you roll all threes 9 actions. Wow. The plot cards are also fun to acquire, read, and use to plan with. You will always want to try to set up the best odds for succeeding, which some games seems impossible. In other games you feel like you get several attempts, but hopefully one of them you will succeed with. The mechanic that they chose to use to let you know if you succeed or not is rolling dice, which I usually don't enjoy. But in this game, the dice rolling works great, and you need to set up your plan the best that you can. If the dice doesn't roll your way, then you can recover and try to do it again before the game changes too much. That makes you plan a whole lot better because you do not want to go to jail. It is very rare that you will win the game with the first attempt, so it's great if everyone playing has their plan going. You can help each other out by switching items and everything, but it's fun because each player is planning to do their own attack and assassinate Hitler, and it's super fun for the player who actually succeeds in their assassination attempt. Again, this is Black Orchestra by Game Salute. If you like what you see, then go buy it.